Let's look at some Kruleboyz lists. I'm really digging this. But first, of course, thanks to all of the patrons, channel art by Wibarian, and Baron of Dice. If you want to buy some dice, go check out Baron of Dice. Save 5% off your order by entering code MDG. Cool. So before we get into some specific lists, I just want to say F Kragnos. I don't particularly like Kragnos in Kruleboyz. I don't think that Kruleboyz wants to play the way that Kragnos plays. I think that he's going to be better in like Gits and Iron Jaws and other destruction armies. So if you're looking for a Kragnos list, unfortunately, that is not what you're going to see here today. Another thing too, just before we get into and all the specifics in the list, is we're going to always obviously run the Scaregob Totem, and we're going to run the Manifestations of Gorkamorka. They're very strong. They're very good. Hobgrots are still trash. The kill boss on foot is still trash, but besides that, the rest of the army is looking good. There's nothing really in the army that I feel is really bad, and almost everything is worth taking. That includes, I guess I don't have a model for him, but that also includes the little stab grot boss, but only because he is the cheapest hero that we can get that sits in the totem. Actually, you know what? I think the Snatcher boss is probably out, and the regular Scumdrek is also probably out. Because, yeah, the Snatcher boss is probably actually F tier. But besides that, like, all the models that you see here on the table, like Soggy Scumdrek, Gobsprak is debatable, but lots of solid options. The only things I think that are really important to consider when you're deciding, like, what kind of list that you want is, do you want to play the kill boss on Vulture or the Nashtooth? Because you can play both, obviously, you know, but they kind of fill the same role. They're both like mobile pieces that can move around and help get into fights to trigger the Swamp Horde bullies. They cap objectives. They kind of get where you need to be. The Nashtooth has a 3-up save, but the Vulture boss can take one of the artifacts, or sorry, one of the what are they called? The monstrous traits that gives him +1, essentially +1 save, -1 rend. So I guess it's not +1 save if your opponent has 0 rend, but most of the time it'll be +1 rend against, you know, all attacks. So that's so they can both sort of be 3-up save units. So that's pretty cool. And the other thing that I think is you have to think about is, do you want to take a Break-a-Boss or do you want to take Scumdrek? You can obviously take both, but I'm seeing in most lists it's either one or the other. And the reason is because they both take up like a smashy monster slot. We're playing a lot more Gut Rippers and we're playing a lot more Gut Rippers than we have in previous editions. Most lists that I'm seeing have 2 reinforced units of Gut Rippers, right? Because obviously Swamp Horde Bullies is going to be best with lots and lots of Gut Rippers. So it just feels like it's a lot on the table, right? When you're playing 2 units of reinforced Gut Rippers, and you're playing Scumdrek, and you're playing a Break-a-Boss, and you're playing like a Nashtooth or a Vulture boss, it feels like it's getting to be a lot of models on the table, and they're stepping on each other's toes. And at that point, it would better to have like more casting or more shooting or more utility pieces. So in the lists that I'm seeing that are doing really well, I'm seeing most people opt for the Scumdrek. I think primarily because the Scumdrek is going to deal mortal wounds, right? And the Break-a-Boss I think also needs to have like a heroic trait and a monstrous trait in a way that Scumdrek doesn't. Scumdrek is good all by himself without any kind of enhancements needed, right? And if we just have a quick look at some of the damage output that we're getting, right? The new Scumdrek is dealing like, you know, 12 damage, and a lot of this is mortals, and the Break-a-Boss is dealing 15 damage, but there's barely any mortals coming through. So you can see against like a 2-up save with, sorry, let me slow down for a sec. Their damage is actually comparable without meaning. If you give them no enhancements, the Break-a-Boss and Soggy Scumdrek deal about the same amount of damage against a 4-up save. However, when we look at better saves, like 2-up saves, the new Scumdrek is dealing 10.5 against the Breakaboss's 7.5. When you throw Minen in, Scumdrek is still out damaging the Breakaboss against 2-up saves, but then the Breakaboss starts to deal more damage, more and more damage, as the saves get worse and worse and worse. You can see, if you're looking, right, but the Scumdrek will deal somewhere between 10.5 damage to just under 13 damage against 2-up saves all the way to 6-up saves. The range is low because a lot of the damage is mortal wounds, right? The Breakaboss deals more damage. He deals somewhere between 9.5 to 18.5 damage, but his damage is not, most of his damage is not mortal wounds, right? Does that make sense? So Scumdrek is going to be dealing sort of more consistent damage, and it's going to be able to break through the enemy's armor in a way that the Breakaboss isn't going to be. And again, the damage between a Breakaboss and Scumdrek is almost the same if the Breakaboss doesn't have Minen. A naked Breakaboss and a naked Scumdrek are dealing comparable damage. The Breakaboss is obviously dealing more damage per 100 points because he's 50 points cheaper. But like I said previously, I'm seeing most people opt for Scumdrek because, again, you can take him naked and he deals a lot of mortal wounds. You can take both, but I'm just kind of thinking that it's not going to be efficient use of your enhancements, and it's also sort of too many bodies on the table. If you're like, I want a monster that fits like a punchy up the middle of the battlefield role, I think Scumdrek is more efficient in that role. That being said, you can take both. Monster Killers are an auto-include in every single list. I think you would need at least 2. I don't think it matters what list you're taking, what you're doing, what your plan is. I think you always include 2 Monster Killers every single time. They're just so bloody efficient. First of all, they have some of the best anti-monster tech in the game, right? In the game. But Monster Killers just deal so many points. Naked Monster Killers with no buffs are dealing 6 damage per 100 points, and some of that's mortal wounds. They're just so bloody cost effective. And then as soon as you throw them up against monsters, like, they're dealing 6.5 damage per 100 points, right? And they, 110 points, even if we look at, like, their health, right? Like, where's Monster Killers? Monster Killers. Look how tanky they are, right? They're like, they're sitting at like almost at 20. Right, which is a lot, right? Just a little bit under Gut Rippas because they have 6 fewer wounds than Gut Rippas, right? Or 6 fewer health than Gut Rippas. But they're 40 points cheaper than Gut Rippas. So I don't think it matters what you're doing. I think that that you auto-include Monster Killers. Swamp Call Shaman, I think, is also pretty much an auto-include, right? And then the Merc Nob, I think the Merc Nob's role right now is to sit in the Scaregob Totem, right? Because he's cheap. So if you have 30 extra points, you can upgrade him to a Swamp Call Shaman, and then you can have a second Swamp Call Shaman that sits in the tower. But I think you want your Swamp Call Shamans wholly within 12 of your Gut Rippas to give them that +1 save from the elixir, right? From their ability that's just sort of built into their War Scroll. Let's yeah. If you only have 70 points left, this is where you can take the little Slita boss, right? Because he is the cheapest hero that you can take to put inside of the totem. Marshcrawler, right? Being able to run and charge is just really good. This gets those big bricks that Gut Rippas into place when you need. I've talked about this a lot. Killbows are still deadly scary. Your opponent is going to be running a big centerpiece monster. Almost all the armies are running big centerpiece monsters. If you just have one in your list, your opponent is going to just keep their monster away from you, and it's just psychologically it's so good. If you're playing into a meta where they don't have any monsters and there is no big centerpiece threat, you can skip the Killbow, but I don't think you will. And then Bull Boys are still good, either in small groups, like you can have like 3 groups of 3 if you want. Don't forget that every group has a champion, so 2 times 3 has 1 more attacks than 1 times 6. We're not using a lot of Sneak right now because of the way that we're trying to conserve our dirty tricks. Sneak, when the index came out, was what you did, right? You would just use Sneak all the time because you could do it in your opponent's movement phase. But since that was taken away, what we really want to do is making sure that we get our venom-encrusted weapons on our reinforced bricks of gut rippas and our noisy racket strike last dirty tricks off super consistently. That's what we really want. Which again, by the way, this is why Cruel Mockery, this bad-mouthing baiters, was never going to be good, because it's a dirty trick. So it's like, hey, guess what? You can use this ability, but you get -1 to your strike last dirty tricks. Like, well, that's awful. Like, it's just awful. Swamp Horde Bullies is so much better. Anyway, so running them in small groups, I think that I would be surprised. I don't think that people are going to be running like 2 squads of 6 Bolt Boys. That's probably too much. But a squad of 6 and a squad of 3, or 3 squads of 3, I think these are definitely good. You can also run none. I don't think that they're required. But I think that when you're making a Kruleboyz list, I think that you need to ask yourself 2 questions to start with. Do you want Scumdrek or a Break-a-Boss? Do you want a Gnashtooth or a Vulture Boss? Or do you want to lean into a list that has both of those types of units? And lastly, how much shooting do you want? Do you want to have lots of shooting, like Killbows and Bolt Boys? I think you could run like 3 times 3 Bolt Boys and 2 Killbows, or 4 times 3, or 2 times 6 Bolt Boys and 2 Killbows. You could go for a really heavy shooting list, right? In which case you're probably not going to bring a Marsh Crawler, you know, right? Like it sort of changes how your list works. So I think those are kind of the big questions to ask. When it comes to battle tactics for Kruleboyz, I think right off the bat, I think Attuned 2-Guy Ran and I think Wrathful Cycle are both just off the table. Wrathful Cycle is off the table because you have to be the underdog to get this to work, and I just think that's bad planning. I don't recommend it. I change my mind about battle tactics all the time. The more that I play, the more that I'm sort of feeling that the game is different, right? We're all learning together. Let me know what you think about what I'm about to say about battle tactics down in the comments below. I also don't particularly like Attuned 2-Guy Ran in Kruleboyz. The reason is because we're not like a super anvil army, and if we're going to be like 4 or 5 drops, our opponent can just... They can decide to go first, they can make us go first, and I just don't want to be forced to run into the center of the battlefield. Where I'm sitting right now with battle tactics is I want to do as little positioning on the table with my battle tactics as possible. I want to just, like, play the game how I want to play the game, not worry about being on the flanks, not worry about being in the center, not worry about running out into the middle. I just want to play the game how I want to play it. I want to be tricky and cagey and launch my little sneak attack surprises and just kill my opponent and table them is sort of how I'm feeling about it right now. So Intercept and Recover is a battle tactic that I previously sort of poo-pooed, but I'm kind of thinking it might actually be decent, especially if you're playing slightly heavier shooting. Being able to snipe off a hero after a sneak, or being able to shoot like their hero monster with a kill bow, or having a Gnashtooth and a Vulture Boss. Like, we're very maneuverable and we have some pretty good shooting. Don't forget, our Bolt Boys are Rend 2. Our Bolt Boys are Rend 2, which means that, you know, with our 18 range 3s and 3s, or 2s and 3s if we haven't moved, 2 Rend 2 damage shots, we can snipe off units. And even if they don't want us, like, even if they're trying to hide the units from us, and with the Vulture Boss and a Gnashtooth and shooting, we're able to get to them. So Intercept and Recover is actually a pretty decent battle tactic for Kruleboyz, as opposed to Iron Jaws, where like we're slow and sluggish unless you're playing like a big pig list, right? But Intercept and Recover I think is worth taking. Same thing with Master the Paths. As soon as you kill a hero, after that the other battle tactics are actually pretty decent. Right? More friendly units in neutral territory than enemy units. And then the other one is like being wholly within 9 inches of 3 different corners, and 2 of them are in your opponent's corner, and 1 of them can be set up this turn. If we're playing fast Vulture Boss, if there's lots of units that we can just near the end of the game sneak off turn 4 and then sneak in turn 5. It's not that difficult to get, right? So we could actually score all of these, which is pretty decent. Restless Energy is another one that's pretty decent. Control more objectives than your opponent. That one's pretty easy to do. And the other ones are a little bit harder, right? Like every objective within enemy territory. I think you want to be more of a melee focused, like lots of Monster Killers. We'll see some lists here in a bit. And then Scouting Force, right? Like you can run like multiple units of Monster Killers and Bolt Boys, and it's really easy to get them outside of our territory. It's also easy to like use Sneak to sneak them off onto the other side of the table. But for me personally right now, what I'm looking at, what I'm feeling is Master the Paths and Intercept and Recover. Because again, I just want to kill my opponent. It's like, cool, I'm going to kill everything that you have. So I'm going to score all my tactics just by like killing the tar out of you. And I'm just going to position wherever I want. I don't worry about things in neutral territory. I'm just going to kill one of your heroes, and I'm going to start picking off your units. And if you try to run away and hide from me, that's fine. It's going to make your positioning on the table weaker, and I'm just going to get you. I'm going to play it like I'm just going to get you. Anyway, that being said, I'm not going to talk about battle tactics, manifestations for all the lists, because again, I'm not super confident to say which one is sort of best for which lists. That's the preamble. Let's get started. Okay, so first of all, this is a list. This first list that I want to show, I think, is this Eugene's list? No. Yes, this is Eugene's list. This is a list that I believe Eugene Averin, I've talked to him before, like I did an interview with him before on the channel, but he went 4-1 recently. Him and I were going to have a little interview, but he's just like super swamped right now. Hi, Eugene. How you doing? Hope you're doing great. So I'm just going to sort of go over his list. So it's a 5-drop list. It's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 5-drop list. First we have Swamp Boss Scumdrek, of course, and then we have a Swamp Kala Shaman. They are in their regiments all by their lonesome. Then we have a second Swamp Kala Shaman. Going for 2 Swamp Kala Shamans is totally legit. Totally legit. 110 units for maybe the best wizard in destruction, absolutely. And then he runs 4 units of Monster Killers, so lots of infantry in this list. Then we have a kill boss on Corpse Ripavulcha. I do believe in this list, let me just double check here, he took Slippery Scumbag and he took Toughen. So Toughen is the one that gives -1 rend against everything. So unless they have no rend, which if they have no rend, it's probably not that scary anyway. But it essentially, most of the time, like 85% of the time, makes the kill boss on a 3-up save. And then he also, his Artifact of Power, I think, is, he took the Eye Pebble. And I can't remember what unit he put it on. I'm just looking here. Oh, he put it on the Merc Knob. So he's got a Merc Knob. And I think the Merc Knob's primary job is going to be to sit in the tower. And then once per game, instead of having a 6-up ward, it has a 5-up ward. He can also like move him out of the tower, and he, like, I think, because I would have loved to talk to him, but I think that it kind of maybe might depend on the matchup and what stage of the game that it's in. But you could stick a shaman in the tower, or you could take a Merc Knob and follow around a unit of Gut Rippers. One unit can get like +1 or +2 save, and the other unit can have a 6-up and then a once per game 5-up ward. Or both, if you don't want to sit things in the tower. And then last but not least, he has, like I said, a Merc Knob with 2 reinforced units of Gut Rippers and a Marshcrawler Shaman. No shooting in this list. No shooting, right? So no Killbow, no Bolt Boys, right? He's got a fighting monster and a mobility monster and 2 shamans. So definitely a very good list, very fun list. The second list that I wanted to go over was a list that I covered, I think, earlier today. I made a video, Kruleboyz Go 5-0 with Tad Baton. I'm going to have an interview with Tad sometime this week. I think on tomorrow, actually, if I think. So probably about 24 hours from now, you should check back. So this list is way more shooting. He's got 3 units of Bolt Boys. So he went with the kill boss on Corpse Ripavulcha. Let me just double check here. I think he also went with Toughen. Yes. He went with Toughen on the kill boss, on the Vulture boss, and he also went for Slippery Scumbag. So of course that's the 3-up retreat with 2 reinforced units of I'm not even on the right thing, with 2 reinforced units of Gut Rippers. And then we also have a Swamp Kala Shaman who had the Artifact of Power, the Swamp Staff, and 3 units of Bolt Boys, right? And this is that MSU Bolt Boy style. So, you know, there's lots of opportunity here. I also think that he took Scouting Force. Yeah, he took Scouting Force. He took Restless Energy and Scouting Force. So being able to get outside of his territory with scouts is relatively easy. Then the next regiment, he's got a Scumdrag with a Marscrawler Shaman, or sorry, a Marscrawler Sloggoth, 2 units of Monster Killers, a Merknob, and a unit of Hobgrots. I do believe, if I remember correctly, that this list is, yes, it's exactly 2,000 points. I'm not a big fan of the Hobgrots, but they are scouts. So it sort of fits. Like, this is a unit that you can teleport away onto an opponent's piece of terrain, and that's all that they do. They're good when the turn comes that you need to cap enemy terrain and objectives to score Scouting Force. You can do that with the Hobgrots. What are they? Are they 80 points now? So again, it's 2,000 points, so it's not enough to. I don't know. I feel like you could probably shuffle it around, but I'm excited to talk to him and see what he has to say about this unit and like its utility and what it actually brought to the list. Because if this was my list, because I'm ignorant, right? I don't know everything about the army and how other people play the game. But if this was my list, I'd be desperately trying to find a way to get rid of these guys. I'd be like, okay, well, if I cut the one unit of Bull Boys and these guys, it's 90 and 80, so that's 170, right? So it's like, oh, like, what can I, try to fit in? I'll probably take a Killbow with 30 points under, right? But that's just me. This next list is a list, I tried really hard to write a list that included Gobsprak. So I just took Gobsprak, the mandatory 2 units of Reinforced Gut Rippers and 2 units of Monster Killers, Swamp Caller Shaman with the Swamp Staff, a Killbow, because we're gonna play at range here, and then I included a Gnashtooth, a Break-a-Boss, and Soggy Scumdrag. So this is more of like a monster heavy list. I think in this list I gave the Break-a-Boss his Egomaniac and Meenan in this list, but like in hindsight, I kind of feel like a Break-a-Boss and a Gnashtooth is 260 points. So if you cut those out and threw in a Vulture Boss, right, it might work a little bit better. I'm kind of favoring the Vulture Boss right now, but the Gnashtooth is just also so good. Like they're both just really good. The free teleport is so just being like, haha, I'm over here, haha. 10 wounds on a 3-up save. Like, it's good. I kind of want to try a list with both the Vulture Boss and the Gnashtooth. Maybe we'll try that at the end. But yeah, like if you want to play Gobsprak, but I think it's kind of suboptimal, personally. This list, compared to other lists, has far fewer bodies, right? Like if we're looking at non-monsters, this list has 4 units, while if we look over here at Tad's list, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 like non-hero units, and Eugene's list has 6 non-hero units, right? So it's a little bit more monster heavy and a little bit less like heavy on the units, just because Gobsprak is still pretty expensive. Like Gobsprak is still 310 points, while a Kill Boss on Corpse Ripavulcha is 260 points. So 50 points is a lot. Gobsprak has to come down still, I think. But he's getting closer. I think he was like 380 at the start of the edition, right? But so he's 70 points down from where he is. But I still think maybe like 280. I still think he's got to come down before we see him in play lots. Okay, and the last list this is what I would put on the table next. This is going to be like my next list. I like kind of a mix. So I have Scumdrag with 2 reinforced units of Gut Rippers. I have a Swamp Caller Shaman with a Killbow and a Marscrawler Sloggoth. Kill Boss on Corpse Ripavulcha with Slippery Scumbag and Toughen. And then Toughen. And then I have 2 units of Monster Killers, a second Swamp Caller Shaman. One of them is going to sit in the tower. And then a reinforced unit of Bolt Boys, which I kind of go back and forth on how I feel about them. Sometimes I want to split them up, and sometimes I don't. I think this really is going to depend on what battle tactics you take. If I'm going to take Intercept and Recover, and Master the Paths, which is what I am going to put on the table next. The next time I play, I'm going to test out those two battle tactics. I think I want to stick them together because if I'm trying to snipe out enemy units or enemy heroes, I think I'd rather have them together so that if I do decide to sneak them and all-out attack them, I'm just bringing a lot more one-turn damage against a target that I'm trying to get rid of, right? And that's kind of my thinking about that right now, is just, with Intercept and Recover. But if I had Scouting Force or some other ones, I'd probably split them up, right? But you can see that my list is kind of in the middle. It's a middle ground list, right? It's got, obviously, the 4 units of infantry with the Marshcrawler, but it also runs Bull Boys and a Killbow, right? And then 2 Shamans. 1 Shaman sits in the tower, 1 Shaman does not. I could also, if I wanted to, replace like 1 unit of Bolt Boys and save myself 90 points and put in instead a Merc Knob, and the Merc Knob could just sit in the tower. But I don't know. This is exactly 2,000 points. So if I cut something, right, I don't think I want to cut the Bolt Boys because I'm kind of running a little bit light on units anyway. I really want to play a Killbow. I really want to play, like, I get greedy, right? I really want to play a Marshcrawler. I also really like my utility pieces. So all of these lists, like 4 drops, 5 drops, 5 drops, 4 drops. It's totally fine to play 4 or 5 drops in Kruleboyz right now. So of all these, like, Bolt Boys are just so cheap, right? They're just so cheap. Yeah. I do like me a Killbow, though. I do. It's a personal preference. I do really like me a Killbow. Okay, so thanks for checking it out. I'm just going to make a list on the fly, I think. So let's take our Scumdrick and our Gut Rippas. Let's take a Swamp Call a Shaman. Let's take a Vulture and 2 units of Monster Killers. And what I want to do is I want to try to fit in a Gnash Tooth and a Vulture Boss. And what that's going to look like. What is that going to look like? Like, if we wanted to do, like, a really high mobility list with lots of... Yeah, we're going to obviously take Swamp Port Bullies. Yeah. So what do we got here? We got Kill Boss and Corpse Trooper Vulture. Probably going to be either 4 or 5 drops. We have a Scourge of Gairan Scumdrick. We also want to try to fit in a Gnash Tooth. And, oops. Yeah, the Soggy Gnash Tooth. Like, I just really like it. I like just, like, the free teleport. It's very good. We also have to obviously take a Swamp Call a Shaman. Like, I wonder what that list looks like. Right? Obviously take a Swamp Call a Shaman, and then let's just go for a full 5 drops. And we'll throw in just a Slit a Boss. And then we can upgrade it later if we have 10 points. We need our 2 units of Monster Killers. And we need our 2 units of Gut Rippas, both reinforced. So let's see what that looks like. 1670. Did we get our... Yeah, we did already. Oops. So let's just take our Merc Knob, and if we need 10 more points, we'll do that. So what is this list doing? Well, it's very melee heavy, so we're definitely going to take a Marshcrawler. I'm not too worried about who's in whose regiment right now. I'm just trying to see about points. So if we take a Marshcrawler, we're at 1800, which gives us 200 more points, which is... So if we're going for like really fast, heavy infantry. So this shell right here is 1800 points. No, it's not. It's not 1800 points. It's 1810. Yeah, it's 1810, which means we have 190 points left, which is a bad number. So, because with 100, with 100 and 90, it's not enough for, well, it's enough for 2 units of Bolt Boys, right, which is 180. So we could throw 2 units of Bolt Boys in here, but I don't think that's what we're really trying to do. Yeah, but you see, like, there's so many lists that you can make in Kruleboyz right now. Like, if I turn this into just a Slitaboss, let's just grab a single Hobgrot, and we'll call him a Slitaboss. So his job is, he's just going to sit in the tower. Then we have enough left over for another unit of Monster-Killers. That brings us to 1910, and then 3 Bolt Boys. Or we could also just do a whole unit of whatchamithings. A whole unit of Hobgrots. But there's so many ways to build right now. I really think it's gonna be like your personal preference and your personal playstyle. Again, I think that this as a core, as a shell, is not necessarily in this order, but I just think that this as a shell is a great way to start any list that you want to make. This is 17 through, nope, it's not 1730. This is 1570 points. This right here. I think, like, I can't imagine, you could get away without a Marsh Crawler, I suppose. I don't particularly recommend it. I guess it's not mandatory, but this is a great starting point. I think that this is probably required, right? I think that this is probably absolutely necessary. That this, if you're like a player who's starting to collect Kruleboyz, and you're wondering like what you should get this season, I think that what I have here is kind of a must. It's 1180 points. So it's like half of your army right here. And then from here you can build it out in any way that you want. It's like, oh, I want to go super infantry heavy and have like tons of monster killers. It's like, cool. Throw in a marsh crawler, right? Throw in a marsh crawler. And, you know, from there it's like, yeah, like there's so many different ways that you can build. Yeah, it's really quite good. I'm not going to do deployment with Kruleboyz because I think that deserves its own video. Like how to deploy these different Kruleboyz units so that you're getting the most out of what you're doing. So let me know what you think. Which of these lists is your favorite? Which, what am I getting wrong? Please tell me. I'm trying to learn and get better. Like, subscribe. Wow.